everyone. You're listening to the voice of Weruché, the host of Conversations with Weruché, an online show where we have conversations about culture, identity, race, immigration, the news, and so much more. Today, August 12, 2020, in our 11th episode, we'll be speaking with Bwiza Mpango, who's a Tanzanian native. She recently concluded her research in Tanzania that focused on domestic workers and education, the right to education for domestic workers in Tanzania. She's a writer and a researcher, and we're happy to have her on the show. Happy listening. Hi, Bwiza. Welcome to our show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Tanzanian, and I came here to America to study human rights for graduate school. And so far, I'm pursuing, human rights. I'm in the human rights field. I started in the education field, where I would work as a teacher, and then transitioned into more human rights work. Yeah.
That's awesome. You did your research on domestic workers in Tanzania. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that and what it entailed?
I did my research last year, and I traveled to Tanzania to, do the research in rural Tanzania, because I found that there was a gap between education for domestic workers getting education, and so I wanted to explore more of that and just learn what exactly was going on. And so, I did go, and I did find out that there was a lot of issues when it comes to, especially girls and getting education instead of, working as domestic workers. And so, I just wanted to explore that and see what's being done currently, and what can be done in the future to continue helping, especially young girls who are working, in homes instead of being in school.
Yeah, we have that issue in Nigeria as well, where we have domestic workers, and it's so ingrained in our system that we don't even address it as a human rights violation that underage girls live in people's homes and perform duties, sometimes unpaid work. The child labor part of it, and then also the abuse that they encounter while they live in these people's homes. And in Nigeria, it's common. But the good thing is that recently human rights workers have also taken it up as a cause to fight against in Nigeria. And would you say the same for Tanzania? Is that what you
so far there's a lot of organizations that are working towards, education, increasing education for girls especially. But in terms of domestic workers, there still needs to be more done, because most of the things that are going on are in places where, rural places. So it's very hard to get in touch with, especially, the girls that are in those areas. And so I think there's still more to be done, especially in places where, we don't know about hidden places. So, and also because domestic work is in the hidden sector. And so if it's in a rural area and, girls are in homes, and it's very hard to get information from that type of space. And so I think that's where most work needs to be done, because in other areas, maybe in the cities and urban areas, there's people working on that, but more has to be done within the rural sections.
Okay. Now, what is the government in Tanzania doing about it? Like, what does the news report that the government does about domestic workers?
So far, it's something that I think it's something that's a global issue, as you say.
Right.
Since it's more focused in the hidden sector, it's not really, people don't see it as something that needs to be, a policy change or something that's important enough to make governments act, and focus on it more. They'll focus on other issues, that are known, and that are seen. But hidden things like this, it's very hard to start making policies around that.
Correct.
So far, there's organizations that are working there to provide education, but there is still a lot that needs to be done in terms of the government actually giving, its full-on support for just, the domestic workers section in Tanzania.
And what were the numbers for you, like based on, how would you interpret the numbers and the scale, should I say, of this crisis? I'd call it a crisis because that's what it is. What would you say?
The numbers in terms of the scale, it's very well based on my research where I didn't really, because I did qualitative research, and so I was more focused on the things that are happening and not much on the quantities, but they did showcase a lot of things and a lot of people who are going through this situation. And for example, most of the people that I did interview, almost all my samples revealed that most of them did not have any education, any basic education, and so once they did enter into the world of domestic work, then that's when they were completely trapped. And so it kind of showed that it starts from an early age, and so once you get into it, it's very hard to come out of it. Once you're inside that situation. And so I can say, basically what I can say is my research did show that I would say the majority of mostly, I think the number that I did research on and the number that I focused on, almost all of them went through the same problem and did not receive adequate education that they were supposed to receive.
Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting. So let's move on to something else. Why did you choose getting a human rights education?
Well, there were a lot of reasons.
And you can throw the question back at me too if you like.
I will.
But yeah.
So because I didn't, I always tell people that I did not know anything about human rights, especially from the get-go when I started. When I went to school for undergrad, that was not my focus at all. I was, I did English, and I was just, I wanted to go into, teaching field and just different fields that, were focused on just community work. But as I started, teaching and seeing how, what impact you can create in if you're on some kind of platform or just, giving out education, I started wanting to focus more on more people getting education, and I wanted to know what happens if how does that work? How do people get educated, and who does this? Who helps out and who helps people? People who can't even manage to get an education. How does that work?
How does it work?
And so I started looking more into the basic rights that a human being has, no matter what social status they have, or where they're from, or just the basic rights. And then that's when I was introduced into human rights.
Correct.
That all of us have, no matter what we do or where we're from.
Correct.
So and from a personal level, I also there's some things that I saw that were not I would say they were not fair. That were being done, to different groups of people, including myself as a Black woman. And so all of these things just push me more towards understanding what it is that, the rights that I have and the rights that others have, and how we can push for those rights to be recognized and to be fully realized, and also to be within our policies. And so that's when I decided, let me try and get more focus on this. Let me get more educated on it, and so that I can actually try and do something out of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I kind of already knew that that's what led you to it. But I mean, for me, my life experience pushed me to further, like, just like you, I didn't identify human rights as a focus until a lot of years had passed and a lot of experiences and going through the immigration process and the things that were manifesting in the news again, so it was a lot of factors and also going through the system as a Black woman, health-wise, the health, and then so I found that the more the word intersectionality is what comes to mind. The multiple layers of discrimination that we face as just people of color, and the more I experienced it and internalized it, the more I found the need to inquire about what our rights are as human beings, and especially in our newfound location, in our new home, the United States, and that's sort of how I found, and even how I found the program that we both attended and that type of thing. So that was why I decided, it makes sense because we were coming from different angles now. It wasn't just one focus. It wasn't human rights as we've known it in Nigeria or in Africa. It's more human rights that is unseen, that in a society where everything appears to work just right, but then there is there still is the segregation and the discrimination and all of that. And so I saw the need to further understand it, and to be more educated as a way to help alleviate these issues and be more channeled. And of course, with the United Nations, and the sustainable development goals, that too sort of just gives you a clear roadmap as to what we should all strive to work on. And that sort of just helps make it clearer. And so, it came from all angles for me, and I saw that it just became inevitable, it became inevitable. But I'm happy you shared yours as well, because it's very helpful. I want to know your thoughts on the human rights issues in the United States, being that we live here. I know we're both African, but this is our current location, so it's important to also address it here. What are your thoughts on that? Racism, the substandard health care for Black women and all of that. What are your thoughts?
I think it's very difficult because especially when we look at America, from a distance, it prides itself to be, the human rights machine of the world, the one that is, advising everyone to be, focusing on human rights and not abusing human rights. But when we look within, we can see that it's the same problem that's happening, and it's even worse because they're saying one thing, but they're not looking at what's happening in their own, in their own soil. And so I'm just saying, yes, especially when we look at the numbers, numbers don't lie. We can see that there's huge disparities between, minorities and other races. When we look at healthcare, when we look at different systems, there's a lot that's going on that's hurting the minority. And as you say, exactly, when we look at maternal mortality rates, Black women are more likely to die from the pregnancy and things that they're supposed to, it's not sickness that you're supposed to die from. It's who you are as it's supposed to be something that is not supposed to get you killed, but as you can see, it happens. And so I think it's a very, very, very deep-rooted issue that needs to be changed, not just from it needs to start from the root, and the root cause is racism, because from racism, that's when inequality grows. That's when people are not given what they're supposed to have. And that's when systems start. Black people are underrepresented, and that's why even when we see what's going on now with like the COVID. More, minority groups are dying more than any other race, and so it opens back to just the systems and the way that they are working against minorities. And so there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, there is.
There's work to be done. Yeah.
There's so much work to be done, and then it's just sad because we're watching a lot of things play out. Especially now during the COVID-19 era, where there's a disparity in the resources that the minorities are getting as compared to it's just making it more glaring, and it's just sad that we have to be experience it on that level.
Yes.
And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record talking about systemic inequalities and all of that, but it's rooted in that. It's sad, but it's sort of designed to keep it, to keep those people away from the resources, and it's and so I like that a lot of politicians these days are beginning to make it their mantra. They want to help alleviate it, and so that's a start. Hopefully we begin to see the effect of the change that they all propose as we go forward.
This year with everything that's going on, there has been I think there has been a wave of change.
Yes,
and also brought back by this COVID situation where people are seeing, they're forced to see what's happening.
Correct.
They're not, they can't go anywhere. They can't go. They're not working. They're not busy. Nobody can make the excuse that I have other things to do. Everybody's at one place and seeing the things that are going on.
Yes.
And so when you see this, you're forced to act.
That's true.
So in a way, I give this was something that's a good thing at the same time. It's something that's waking people up to like the reality of what's
going on. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you. So now let's travel to Eastern Africa, Tanzania. Let's travel to your hometown, your home place. Tell me, what is Tanzania best known for? What are you guys known for?
I would say wow, that's a good question.
That's a good one. Mount Kilimanjaro comes to mind.
That was my first thought. That I wanted to say Mount Kilimanjaro. The tourism side. I would say Zanzibar too. It's
nice.
One of a very beautiful island where you can see it's very cold. There's a lot of history behind it.
Nice.
And we're the people of Mount Kilimanjaro and just all these other
That's lovely. So where are you from, and do you speak Swahili?
Yes, I speak Swahili.
That's nice.
I'm actually from Kigoma. It's in the western side of Tanzania.
Okay.
And it's a little town that's that's next to Lake Tanganyika, and so we're very big on fish, and there's a fishing port.
Nice.
That's where I'm from.
That's where you're from. Okay, that's good. Now what's your traditional food in
Tanzania in general?
In general, yeah, or and your local community as well.
I would say ugali. Is it fufu in?
You guys eat fufu? We eat fufu in Nigeria. How do you make your fufu? What do you make your fufu with?
We use
cassava.
Maize flour.
Maize flour. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Water and there's other types of flour too that we use. I actually don't know the name in English, but I know it in Swahili. But you can use different types of flour to make
fufu. Yeah, like in Nigeria, we use yam. Sometimes we use cassava. We use maize flour, just like you said. Yeah, we use the bark, the actual bark of yam.
Oh,
yeah, that too. Yeah, we use it. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Say something in Swahili.
What can I say? Habari yako?
Nice. What does that mean?
It means, how are you?
Oh, lovely, lovely. Now, let me ask you, because in Nigeria we have 250 ethnic groups. Is it the same for you guys? Do you all speak one language, and is it how does it work there? Because we have many languages. Mm-hmm.
We have many. It's similar to us because we're different. We have so many different tribes. Okay. But we're united in one language that is Swahili. So nice. It doesn't matter if you're, from from like the western part of Tanzania or like the northern part of Tanzania. We can all connect using one language, which is Swahili, and that's why most of us refer to ourselves as Tanzanians instead of calling yourself from someone from like
tribes. That is that's so different from Nigeria, because like in Nigeria you have to kind of specify I'm Igbo or I'm Yoruba or I'm Hausa. Yeah, you're right. Oh, that's so nice. That's lovely. That's lovely. Yeah. So like, do you guys? What do you drink? What kind of what's your local drink? In Nigeria, ours is in Igbo land, ours is Mayanko. Mayanko is wine tapped from palm trees. I actually read a poem. It's very sweet and lovely, but it's fermented wine, and it tastes, so it kind of is like our regular wine that we have here, but it's tapped from from palm trees. So yeah, you find it in the villages. It's not regular that you just find it like in a store somewhere. No, they have to like tap it in the village because it takes a lot of it probably has to sit after days of tapping or something to that effect, and then. So it's usually the locals that serve it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know like there's a lot of, in Tanzania there's like a lot of local brew.
Nice.
Depending on like where you're from. And so, I mean, if you go like to the north, there's like different types of local brew that they make. But I think that most, the thing that most, Tanzanians don't like to drink. I mean, personally, I think it is tea.
Nice. Okay, that's great.
I think we're really good tea. I think anywhere you go, you wouldn't find a person that would say that they don't like tea.
I see.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's lovely.
There's different types of teas too. So there's, and we put like a lot of different flavors in our tea. And so like, we put ginger, we put like cardamom, we put everything. So yeah.
So I found this article very interesting that says traditions and customs only people from Tanzania will understand. And then the first thing I know, they said keep your left hand to yourself. Can you identify with that? Can you relate to that? Because I can, as a Nigerian.
I mean, what I can say is, I think it goes into like the belief that the left hand is not.
Yes.
Appropriate.
Same thing in Nigeria. Oh my God! They say it's disrespectful to use your left hand for a young person to hand something to an older person with their left hand is disrespectful. Yeah, we don't do that. Yeah, you only eat with your right hand, and that's interesting. Then I read another one. They said sniffing food is a no-no. Is that true? That you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think for me personally, it started from home. Like if I was, or if anybody was seeing, especially when the food is there and it's it's cooked and it's on the table, and you come and you open it and you sniff it. That's the way. That's disrespect. That's so it's not from home, and I guess if you know it from home, you can't go do it outside of the house too. It's something that will be seen as not very respectful.
So now let me take you to the Lion King, Hakuna Matata. Can you tell me what it means originally? Because now the whole world knows it, but nobody really knows the origin.
It means no worries. As it states, it does mean no worries.
No worries. Yeah. So because I hear that your culture, you guys don't rush. You guys are very like easygoing, laid back. Yeah. So it has a lot to do with that, correct? And I noticed you in class, by the way. You always have the same demeanor all the time. I would always come in either late from another class or something, but you were always just so chill.
Yes, I think I get it from my culture, because even a lot of people tell me you stay calm under pressure. Like a lot of
yes, that's wonderful.
You're just, so yeah, I think it's more of just internalizing everything and believing it. Hakuna matata, like whatever happens. I don't need to panic so much
that is so good. I mean, is it okay to ask your religious beliefs? Do you practice any type of religion, particularly?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm Christian.
Okay.
Born and raised. So, and even in Tanzania, the two dominant religions are Christianity and Islam.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but me and my family, we're Christians. Yeah.
Nice. That's lovely. Okay, yeah, we're Christians too, and just like you guys, I think a little over 50% of our population in Nigeria are Muslims. And then so we coexist, and that's why we have the Sharia law, and so we have, Nigeria actually, I think at some point was registered as an Islamic nation, but then now, Nigeria is a nation state. Nigeria is actually a multinational. If I were to, we really shouldn't exist as one unit. And that's why that's why there's the constant strife and all of that between the ethnic groups and the religious. Again, with the different cultures and the different languages, there's no one way to keep those big groups together without one part thinking, they've not gotten enough of the leadership, they've not been given the leadership. There's the whole thing about tribalization and who gets to be president next and that type of thing. Exactly. And it's almost like, okay, what part of Nigeria, which is why we had the Biafran war, what triggered the Biafran war. It felt like most of the resources were coming from the southeast, and the north, but the north stayed dominant and stayed in control, and didn't want didn't want Biafra to leave Nigeria, because then that's where you get the oil, and that's where you get the vegetation and the all of that. So it was a lot of infighting, which could have been avoided if Nigeria existed separately. That's sort of our little backstory to why we have more to the strife and all of that. Traveling at this time, I mean, I wish I could go to Nigeria, but there's so much going on, especially with COVID-19, and also immigration, and even immigration. So it's just not not exactly an exciting time to leave to travel. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I believe it's similar. It's the same for me. It's not an ideal time to travel unless, again, if it's essential, as they say. If it's deemed essential, then yes, but there's a lot going on, because even the way different countries are handling this virus, I mean, you can go to a country that, is looking at it in a different way, and, you're from somewhere that's looking at it in a different way, and so it can get a lot complicated. And so I just think that to avoid issues or problems, people should probably just, try and stay put until things start at least, changing from where I hope that they do.
I hear they've opened up the airway here in America. I don't know how that looks, because we up here, up north, we've had our waves of the virus, and we seem to be containing it quite well. But I wonder how that's going to look if the airspace is opened up, and the other areas that are currently battling with the surge of the virus, how that's going to look. I feel like there's just going to be like this influx of people coming from the other areas to our area, and then it's going to keep the spread going. And
they're doing that too. I think so too, because even, in New York, they've almost done a really good job to lower, because we were at the epicenter, in March.
Yes, he did an amazing job.
He did a very, very good job. And then now it's like other states, their cases are rising. And so it's kind of worrying to think, since everybody is now allowed to travel and start doing everything, like what happens, we don't want to go back to the same thing that we were, going through. And so I just hope people are, careful in whatever they're doing and just try and think about other people. And so, it's something that all of us should work on it together. I don't know why most people think it shouldn't be something that's an individual choice. Correct. Because we all go through this as a global, it's a global thing, and so we should look at it in that way. And I think that's what's going to help. But if everybody's doing what they want to do and not listening to what's going on, I don't think we're going to get through this as fast as we want to.
You're very right about that. And I just have to give it to your governor. He's doing an amazing job containing the virus. I like also what my governor is doing, Lamont. Lamont is doing a great job. And so far it seems like we up here, because they banded together with the New Jersey governor and then, worked together. They had similar plans. And so far it looks like that was effective. Wearing the masks. I saw the video that the lady from Cameroon, the lady who talked about the medication that I don't want to mention the name here, the medication that we're supposed to be taking to alleviate. I heard that whole thing about don't wear masks and all that, and I think that's a very irresponsible thing to tell people when we have a high rate of deaths from this. So we don't promote that. We don't agree with that. If that medication works, by all means we'll be happy, but it has to come from the legal source. CDC has to approve it. It has to be known that it is the right way to go. We're not just going to jump on it without the approval. So I do hope there's a vaccine soon, though, to curtail it.
I really hope so too. Because I don't think it's going to get better if people are not doing it as a team.
Correct.
Right now, we're supposed to be doing things as a team.
Correct.
But, say the irresponsibility and the selfishness of individuals is what drives us back.
And so, yeah. I agree. Yay, it's been great talking with you, Bwiza. I love it. We'll definitely talk some more because I'm interested in knowing, further outcomes of the research. I know it's ongoing for you. I know that, and I know that with our research, there's no end in sight. You just have to keep gathering your data. Keep going. And hopefully one of these days when we present at the UN, remember the last time we were supposed to get together? We couldn't go. COVID shut us down. So hopefully by March when we go again, both of us will go, and then we'll present and we'll talk some more. I look forward to it. I just hope this all settles down soon. But thank you so much for giving us your time. I appreciate it.
It's a good time talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
In our next episode, we'll be traveling to North Africa to speak with Faiz Al-Salik. He's the media advisor to the current Prime Minister of Sudan, and we'll be speaking with him about the progress being made in the country with the current administration, as well as the overall efforts at pro-democracy in the region. Thanks for listening. Remember, as Frederick Douglass said, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. Thanks.